Welcome to AI for Growth, Lessons from Leaders. I'm your host, Megan Driscoll. AI for Growth is a podcast that demystifies AI for business owners. Each episode features conversations with leaders who share their experiences, covering the good, the bad, and the ugly of AI implementation. We aim to help businesses understand how and where AI can effectively scale your operations, focusing on practical insights rather than just hype. Welcome. Welcome to AI for Growth, Lessons from Leaders. Today I have with me Julie Foster, and I'm really excited to have Julie today because Julie is actually a client of mine. So I thought it would be fun to have someone on who has been doing some AI lead gen, who's an actual real small business trying to implement AI in simple ways. So thank you so much for being on the show, Julie. Why don't you introduce yourself, say a little bit about who you are and your business, and tell us, all the good stuff.
Yes, sure. So my name is Julie Foster. I am the founder of A New Path, Life and Grief Coaching. I am a certified grief coach, life transitions coach, and certified grief educator. I do have 10 years of experience as a therapist in the substance use disorder treatment field. And I only stopped working in that field in 2017 after my mom was diagnosed with glioblastoma. So it made the most sense for me out of everyone in my family to be her full-time caregiver. So she lived exactly 1 year from diagnosis. And that entire time, I just assumed that I would know how to grieve because I'm a therapist. I'm supposed to be trained in this. And it was completely shocking when she was gone how little I actually knew about grief. And just in my attempts to get some help for support and help for myself and my siblings and my dad, I realized it's really hard. There's not a lot out there. So, the little entrepreneurial side of my brain was like, problem, solution. I'm a very solution focused person. So it's passionate. I'm passionate about it. This took me down such a rabbit hole, a nerdy rabbit hole of researching and reading and listening to podcasts and just digging out anything about grief theory, grief people, podcasts. And then that's how I decided to get certified as a grief recovery specialist and a grief educator. So it's a nice mix between my therapy background because the skills are transferable, but I'm very niched into grief.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
what I love about we've talked about this because I also lost a parent to glioblastoma, which is considered a rare disorder, but I feel like I know a lot of people who
I
have
do.
family members.
Me
It's
too.
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, so we kind of bond over that too. And in fact, actually, there's been such I think it's interesting. And I don't know that this is like you have to grieve a terrible loss of someone to have something really wonderful happen. But I
Hmm.
know that like a lot of beautiful things came out of my dad's passing.
Hmm.
And I wrote a book about it called Seeking Purpose. And
Hmm.
I know that, this business of yours is born out of the loss of your mom. And so I do think that, there can be a lot of good that can be on the other side of it once you get past that grief.
Sure.
And I agree with you. I agree that, I feel like there's a real lack of support in that space specifically.
Hmm.
But the other thing I want to mention, because this is a podcast for business owners, for small business owners who are growing, and we're
Sure.
going to talk about AI, obviously. But I do think that what is so lovely about what you just said is like you had an entrepreneurial spirit, you saw a gap and like an issue that needed to be fixed, and you decided to fill that gap and fix it. And so, it's so hard for people to get started. Just get started. So many people have great ideas
Yes.
and they just never do anything. So, congratulations to you for
Thank
having
you.
the idea, moving forward, doing the research, getting the certification, starting the business, all of the difficult things you did. You've done them
Yeah.
all. And now
Hmm.
it's just about kind of like walking through the door and developing your strategy for reaching out to people and letting them know that you exist.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. My
And that's
husband and
really,
I'm
go ahead.
sorry, my husband and I own a plumbing business, so I've always been on the back end, not the idea or front of the house, but on the back end making things happen and making sure we don't go homeless. But yeah, it's a whole different experience now being like the business owner.
Yeah, I mean, for sure.
Yeah.
You are the chief bottle washer, right? Like the jack of
Mm-hmm.
trade of everything. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's one of the things, this comes up a lot, and I'm sure that you felt this way, but it does feel overwhelming, right? To start a business.
So
There's
overwhelming.
yeah.
Yes.
So talk a little bit about that, because I think that where AI comes in, and where we're going to talk about how AI helped your business, I think that it comes from a place of feeling totally overwhelmed. So talk about that.
Yes. Yes. Um, I can be the best mental health counselor. I can be the best grief coach in the world and be the worst business owner. They can be, they're two different things. When they merge nicely, that's the sweet spot. So yes, I remember having our first conversation and you're like, what is your business? What do you want to do? And I was like, word vomiting, like I want to help people with grief. I want to have individual counseling. I want to, coach people individually, coach people in groups. I want to write a book. I want to do a blog. I want to do a podcast. I want to help this person and that person. And you were like, whoa, let's slow down. And, we want to make this a profitable business. So let's start where, you already are showing up. And so that was really, really helpful because I was like that. I was in that mentality for at least a year before we really sat down. And that's all good because I was, letting my ideas fester and bringing them to life. But yeah, now making it a business is a whole other realm. And one of the hardest transitions for me was going from, corporate climb the ladder kind of gal and running programs in the substance use disorder treatment field. So I was up the boss a lot, but now I'm like the boss of me and my time, and nobody else really. It's my schedule to control, which is good, but actually AI has actually helped me with that, like the
Yeah.
scheduling and where to use my time and how best to maneuver as a business owner.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and I think that we talk a lot about on the show how important it is to have like a game plan, like a work process. What are you trying to accomplish? And working backwards from there, because like
Mhm.
you can implement a whole bunch of technology and solve a problem that you don't really need to solve, or you solve the wrong problem, or you solve a
Yeah,
problem at the wrong time, right? And I
yeah.
think for you, and the thing that we talked a lot about was you weren't really 100%. You kind of knew what you wanted to do, obviously, but you were really like broad, like I'll do anything. And so,
Well,
having a
yeah.
very specific niche, but we also didn't know really at the beginning of working together, which was going to respond. Like
Hmm.
we had some ideas. And so one of the things that I think was really interesting and helpful, and I'll allow you to talk about it, but just was this where we started to go to sell your services and where we've ended up. So do you want to talk about that kind of journey a little bit?
Yes, that's been a very interesting journey, surprising and pleasantly positive. But so I just assumed that hospice staff, so like the nurses, the CNAs, the therapists, all the hospice organization staff would just, you know, need my services. And how great will this be that I can, give them a place to bring their grief that they experience probably every day. Um, So we did one round of, our reach out, give me a list of all the hospice organizations in Massachusetts. And the response was it was a pretty good response rate, but actually now in practice, it's not going that well. It's just not a it's not a good fit. It's not a good alignment. And I kind of have figured out the reasons why. But then I said, well, let's go from there. And so you went and found a list of all the states and towns in Massachusetts that have councils on aging, senior living, active living centers for living. And so that list has been super fruitful. Such a pleasant response, such a pleasant surprise. I'm currently running two 8-week grief support series in 2 different towns, and the response has been amazing. And personally, for me, it's been really fun to be supportive in a way that's so well received.
Well, and I think that's the key too. Like if you think about how much money big companies spend to try to uncover what their market is, like
Hmm.
and they're testing and testing, and really in like 8 weeks we were able to figure out what was and was not, and we even did a whole treatment center, U.S. treatment center, thinking that that would be another a group of people that
Yes.
would really want this. And it turned out that it was just when you're able to look at these campaigns against one another, it just became so clear who your perfect buyer was, right? Like
Yes.
they have money, they have a need for programming, they have a
Mhm.
group of people who have grief, right? I mean, one of the things that I think dawned on me later was like my mom lives in a senior living facility, and like every week she loses a friend, or
Yes.
someone that she knows, and it's hard for everybody,
Yes.
especially when they're cohabitating in such a way that they become really close with one another.
Hmm.
So it's just be kind of like, because we were able to do it so quick and dirty and kind
Yeah.
of fast, we were able to get to this like, ooh,
It's
we're
a
onto something.
gem. It's like a little gem that we uncovered.
Yeah. And then one I think too is really great, and this is just sales strategy just for people in general, but it's like once you have one win, you just use that win to it's kind of like a snowball that starts down the path, because
Hmm.
now you're like, oh, well, I'm working with this town and I'm working with this place and I'm working with this senior living facility, and it just builds and builds and builds on itself. So we're really like at the beginning of
Yes.
we're at the beginning of the end of figuring out what we should focus on, what you need to focus
Hmm.
on. But we're at the
Hmm.
beginning of really seeing the fruits of that effort and the execution.
Yes. Yes.
So, okay, so the other thing that I want to talk about, because I think this is a very common. I just actually spoke with a business owner this morning. She owns a gym, and she was like, "I actually was thinking about AI this morning and like how it might be able to help my business because I'm really, really frustrated with like everything."
Yeah.
And just overwhelmed, like too many things. One of the things that I think, and so we talked about, do you have a CRM? And she's like, I don't even know what a CRM
Or
is. And so I think you haven't received your CRM yet, right?
yeah.
But you've gotten a little bird's eye view into like what it's going to do and the
Hmm.
automations. How do you feel? You don't haven't had it yet. You don't have it yet, but how do you feel about like the prospect of having one? Like, do you see the benefits yet, or are you kind of like, I just need to wait and see what it looks like when it's done?
No, I'm already seeing the benefits tenfold. I'm thinking back to all of 2025. I took my efforts and joined a ton of networking groups, put my physical body out there, anywhere I could, any, tabling events. And while that was really fun, I learned a lot, and I learned that I'm only one person. And this is going to take me forever to build this community of clients who are open to getting help with grief. So, this CRM already, before I've even really had it in my hands, has helped me cut that time in half. What we did by being able to pull all of the towns in Massachusetts and, fire off a whole campaign would have taken me a year, more than a year to get, call, email, keep calling, keep email. Like it just cut out a whole year of my life and, saved me so much energy too. I was, by the end of 2025, I was actually really exhausted by doing all of those physical networking events. I learned a ton. It was fun, but I was exhausted, and, I need to be more efficient if I'm going to, have a successful business. So it really already has reined me in to a place where I'm like much more strategy centered, and looking at the data and being like, okay, that didn't work, this does work, we're going to move forward with that. Just much more strategic.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I before I became a mental health counselor, I was in the CRM world, and that was more way back when people bought from catalogs. And so it was catalog marketing, and that was really fun. So I do have the ideas in the back of my head, but working with you is like making them real and accessible and in alignment with my vision.
So, One of the things that I think is kind of interesting about the CRM and so this is for anybody who doesn't know, it's a client management system essentially. It gets you off of an Excel spreadsheet or whatever sort of nonsense that you were
Yes.
using beforehand, because it's just not a workable you can't work in an Excel spreadsheet. It's just not something, unless you know macros and someone has really built it for you to operate. You probably could get away a little while like that. But there's something about everything getting cataloged, every email but getting loaded that you're sending, all your information, tagging people so you can find them very quickly, setting them into sort of like a sales pipeline that's automated. So like you are going to be receiving a CRM that's populated with probably 6,000 or 7,000 people, not only just their names, but where they work, their phone numbers, their email addresses. All of them have received emails from you. So they have, received emails, or they've responded in some way. These are people that haven't opted out, but they have been, receiving over time. And now you have the ability to automatically reach them as often as you want to. If you want to send a monthly newsletter to them, every single one of those new contacts can get a monthly newsletter. And they're not just names. These
Yeah.
are executive directors at senior living facilities. These are your prospects. These are people that you can sell to who might not have bought from you today, but are going to be able to buy from you in the future because you're going to be able to stay in contact with them. So it's almost like an instant overnight business. That's kind of how I talk about it. Like, it's hard to see the green. I think when you first start this, it's like there's a little bit of trust. You got to trust me. You have to trust me that when
Yes.
I turn this baby over to you, you're going to be so excited. But I think if you can trust in the system, then when we get there to the part where we actually turn it over to you, it's a really magical moment. So I'm excited to actually do that. It almost feels like when you're an interior designer and you basically do the big reveal or whatever. This is kind of how I feel
Yes.
when I like turn the CRM over to you. And I will note that it does take some time to set it up. It can be a little frustrating. There's a lot of back end connections that have to happen. There's a lot of information that we have to gather because for me, in anything that we do, it's really important that the AI tools and the tools in general, the tech that we provide, works and
Hmm.
is something that you will use. And so
Yes.
anybody can do kind of a quick and dirty setup of a CRM, and then they'll never use it. And what's the point? So
Hmm.
it's really about like making sure the back end setup is correct. We know what we're trying to accomplish. It's easy to use. I strip a lot of the CRMs down to very basic information so that when you walk in there, you are not confused, even on day one.
Yes.
So yeah, so I think it's going to be like a real game changer. I mean, it's already been a game changer, but I think it's going to be like a real game changer for your business, as we move forward. Tell me a little bit about some of the AI that you're implementing on your own for like organizational purposes, or tell me some things about you've worked with that you've liked or things that you've tried and you didn't like.
Okay, so my business coach has really helped me see even just the basic chat GPT, how it can help in so many ways. And like I alluded to earlier, it initially helped me figure out how I will work best in this new schedule, this new pace of life. And so she taught me to go into chat GPT and say, this is my business, this is my personality, or what's the other thing? Um,
God.
no, like those personality tests. What the hell are they called? Um, what was it? Oh, human design. Human design. Take my human design, put it in ChatGPT and say, this is what I want to do. This is how I work. And then, build me a schedule for the next 30 days. And so it, spits out, you should spend this amount of time on reaching out to, your current contacts and this amount of time going to networking events. It just helps me figure out how best to use my time and be efficient. And then now I've been using it for now 6 months to build my group planning, like my group content. So when I'm doing group coaching, so now it understands my voice and my strengths and my weaknesses. It will tell you your weaknesses too. And even I applied for a $25,000 grant and it helped me, really put my business in perspective of this grant. And it's just, there's no end to what it can do. It's just how you're asking it, what you're asking it, what you're feeding it. So that's Chat GPT. And then I have another friend who's helped me see the value of Claude. Is that what it is? Claude.
Yeah, Claude. I
Yeah.
like Claude.
Yeah, so I'm just in a trial phase of it, and that's more about my brand voice and making sure it's the same all the way across all channels. And then where I can in the future, like my next phase or my next growth opportunity, I hope is to create online courses so that I don't have to be physically at each appointment or each, event. I can, another stream of income. So even, Claude has been saying, when you use this content, it will also transfer nicely to your online or your digital products or your digital platforms. So,
Yeah. I think
I'm
that's
starting
really
to like
important
Claude.
too, like to be thinking about how to multiply yourself as a business owner, right? Especially in a
Mm-hmm.
service-based business where you can only bring on as much work as you
I
can
can
bring on,
handle.
right? Like it's your
Yeah.
time. And when you're full and you're saying, time out, I can't work anymore, that's it.
Yeah.
Like you're sort of, unless you're going to increase your prices significantly, your revenue is going
Mm.
to be capped. So moving to an online course sort of platform, I think is a really sort of amazing thing for sole practitioners that are in, any field of that you're doing. And then, it's interesting too. I think we talked a lot. We've talked on this podcast a lot about sort of making sure that your GPT understands who you are and kind of like an
Yes.
origin story, because then they will give you information that is based on what they already know about you, because they're actually learning who you are and learning your voice. And so I
Mm-hmm.
think that's really key and important to keep in mind.
Yep.
And then, so in terms of the other thing we didn't talk about was so a lot of people too, small businesses struggle with social media,
Yes.
and they don't know what to say, and there's a lot of like, what do I say, when do I say it, like, so I actually work with, and I sort of just pass the cost of actually of the social media strategists that I work with. I really just pass on to clients. There's like it's like a throughput. She charges me, and then I just charge the client basically. But she's amazing because she does deep research into like what is the content that makes sense, and then she provides you with like a 3-month calendar, and you can just grab and go. How is it doing that? How is it working with her, or working with me with her on her
Yes.
content?
Having that as a tool ready to go has helped me so much. It keeps me on task. She did really do a great job with the deep dive and I feel like she really knows me and my vision and what I want my business to look like and sound like. So that is first, number one. I trust that. And then, and then I took a physical calendar and wrote out like week one, the theme is, anticipatory grief. And then, Monday, Wednesday are, we're posting Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you know, Monday is a trust building posting. And I never was one to really pay attention to how many views are you getting or, what kind of response. But now that she's taught me to pay attention to that, I have data to see what resonates with clients, what resonates with people versus what totally fell flat. Don't do that again. And that has been such a pleasant surprise to have that as a tool. Um, yeah, it just ended April 1st. I'm on my own, so I'm trying, using what I've learned for the next 3 months.
Yeah, and you can, go back and refresh with her, right? We talked about that, like,
Hmm.
getting another 3 months worth of data. And between that, you might get, another 6 months out of it, right? Repurposing
Yeah.
what she says. Because I do think there's something really nice about not having to think it through. And also, I love the 90 days. Like, it's really nice to actually be like, okay, I have content for 90 days here that I know is
Hmm.
going to resonate. I don't even need to think about it. All I have to think about is like, what picture do I want to capture when I post it? I just think it's, It's really great. I know you went on and individually posted, you actually set it up through, I think through Meta to do it, but I use a platform that I really like. It's a new AI tool called Social Bee. And I really like Social Bee because you can load any of your platforms in there. It posts it all at once, just like a Hootsuite would, but I like Social Bee better. It seems a little bit easier to use. It allows you to sort of categorize the types of posts you're doing. It also allows for like automatic first commenting, which is really nice. So if you're like link in the comments, it's automatically putting it out there. It has all the analytics in one place. So whatever platforms you're using, even if it's like Pinterest or whatever, it doesn't matter. All your analytics are all in one spot. I really like Social Bee. It's pretty cheap monthly fee for the ability to kind of like one-stop shop push everything out. So I'm just making that suggestion to you, but to the audience too for social media management. I do really, really like it.
Thank you.
And I've been
That's helpful because I've literally been doing all of
And I've
that
tried Hootsuite. I mean,
manually.
I've tried them all, and this is the one that I like the best. Yeah.
Okay.
So, well, listen, it was amazing to have you on today. I love having a client come and talk about AI and talk about their business and startup and whatnot. It's been really fun. Where can people reach you if they want to connect?
So my website is anewpathcoaching.com. And my email is julie@anewpathcoaching.com. And yeah, on my website, I have three a free 30-minute consultation to get to know, somebody, whether grief coaching is an appropriate service for them. And then, we go from there. So yeah.
Well, and I can attest to Julie's one of the kindest, most wonderful people that I've met. So there's no better person I
You.
would want to saddle with my grief.
Yep, yep, I can handle it.
You can handle it. If I ever get myself in a situation, and it's inevitable, it's
Yes,
inevitable.
call me.
You're the first person I'm calling. So it was
Yes.
great to have you on. Thank you so much, Julie.
Thank you, Megan.